Hi friends, I'm Bryn and this is Friends Who Crime. Friends Who Crime. Friends Who Crime. Welcome back, everyone. Real quick, I want to remind you to follow and subscribe to the podcast on streaming services. It's on all different mediums now. So turning on auto downloads also really helps the show. We don't get stats for listens, we get stats for downloads, so please download. And then you can also follow Friends Who Crime on Instagram. I post little recaps of every episode and post cute little videos and snippets. So please go follow us there. It's at Friends Who Crime. And we hit 100 downloads this week. Woohoo! Woo. So thank you for listening. And it's only up from here. So thank you guys. It means a lot. I am trying something new today. There's a new segment, but first, let me introduce my wonderful guest, Braden.
Hi.
Hi, Braden.
Hi.
It's good to have you.
Yeah, it's good to be here, man.
So tell me, who are you? How do you know me? And what's your relationship with true crime?
I'm just some guy. My name's Braden. I sing a lot. We met in music school at UT many moons ago. I was doing the math. It's a criminal amount of time. Yep. But yeah, I work in restaurants. I do a lot of wine selling and drinking. Relationship with true crime. Thousands of YouTube shorts of Dexter, which, as I say that, I'm realizing is fiction, so it's not true crime.
True.
I suppose. But I did just start reading Devil in the White City, and I don't know if you know the book, but it's Chicago World's Fair history, and it follows two guys. One of them is an architect, and the other is like one of the early serial killers of American history. His name he had a bunch of aliases, but the main name he goes by is H.H. Holmes.
Yep. I was literally just listening to a podcast earlier today about H.H. Holmes.
The book is so good. It's the author, he does a ton of stuff. Kate Houck, the illustrious and up-and-coming historian that we know, she recommended it to me, and he's got a bunch of cool, it's all reduced to one person's view of major historical events.
Cool.
And it jumps around a little bit, but that's I'm liking it more than I thought I would. And this might be I was I hope this doesn't awaken anything in me, because now I'm I want more mystery stuff.
I
and,
hope it does.
Stuff.
I hope it does awaken something in you.
I gotta watch what I say on here.
In the first episode, at one point, Katie's like, Bryn, have you murdered anyone lately? And there was too long of a pause.
If anyone was gonna do it, though.
Before I said no.
No. By the way, have you seen Andy recently?
Andy?
No, I'm kidding.
Oh. Andy's my first victim. Can you imagine?
If it was gonna be anybody, it would have to be. I think he'd be upset if it wasn't.
Maybe. But also, how would I possibly physically overcome Andy?
Good luck. Big tree fall hard, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. Go low.
Get him while he sleeps. So, like I said, I am trying a new segment today. It's called Brinterrogation. And it gives me an excuse to tell y'all about my life a little bit. And I've been working on a Casey Musgraves song with my student. And
the illustrious.
It always reminds me of when I was working. Boof. Are you gonna come lay down? Oh, he's coming. Meow. Okay, well, I'm just gonna keep going. Sorry, Neiko. Okay. So I've been working on a Casey Musgraves song with one of my students, and Casey Musgraves always reminds me of when I was working at a vet clinic in Nashville. And a lot of celebrities would bring their pets there. I ran into Brett Eldridge, and I talked to Reba McEntire on the phone, and just like Peter Gabriel.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was wild.
Sledgehammer plays at the same time every night at the restaurant, and I could not be happier about it. Truly.
So there was one time where Casey Musgraves came in, and I had to check her in and like had to ask her for her phone number and shit. And I was like, what happened to your pet? Why are you here? And she goes, well, my dog accidentally ate a pot brownie.
Oh, I'm remembering this story now. Oh my gosh.
And it was just very on brand for Casey Musgraves. And that's my story for today, for my interrogation, is that one time Casey Musgraves told me her dog ate a pot brownie. Today, we're diving into the biggest murder case in Indonesia in 2016. It's a story of betrayal, suspicion, and a deadly cup of coffee.
I'm holding one right now for the listeners at home.
Well,
I get very scared.
I promise I have not altered your coffee in any way. You've got a lid on it.
I'd be impressed if you did.
The logo for the podcast is a cup of coffee, so I thought this was poignant. Okay, here we go. Mirna Salihin was born on March 30th, 1988 in Jakarta, Indonesia. Surprisingly, there isn't a lot of information about Mirna or her personal life online, but from what I gathered, her father was a relatively wealthy businessman in the plastics sector, and she had a twin sister. As Mirna grew up, she knew she wanted to be a graphic designer. She was described as a headstrong, fierce child. Her twin sister Sandy said Mirna loved coffee and wanted to open her own cafe one day. After high school, Mirna attended Billy Blue College of Design in Sydney, which is one of the biggest, best graphic design schools in Australia.
Heard that. The land of silly names for things.
Yep, Billy Blue.
Billy Blue.
She found a group of Indonesian friends at the school, and they all became inseparable. They studied together, they went shopping, grabbed lunch. Kind of reminds me of our friends in college. Like, we were just always around each other in some capacity.
Yeah.
After graduating, Mirna moved back to Indonesia. She and her friends naturally drifted apart, but they always kept in touch through texts, calls, social media, and they all knew they would find a time to reunite as a group in the near future. For Mirna, life after college was exactly what she had pictured. She worked in design, she met the man of her dreams. His name was Arif Somarko, and she got engaged to be married.
I feel like by the end of this, I will be applauding you for all of the names to pronounce.
There are phonetic pronunciations after every single one.
Thank you, IPA.
In 2014, Mirna was finally able to visit Australia again. She and her friends got together while she was there, and at lunch one day, Mirna's friend Jessica Wongso confided in Mirna about her current boyfriend, Patrick O'Connor. From the sounds of it, Patrick was no good. He treated Jessica like she was disposable, the relationship was getting really toxic, he was into drugs and alcohol, and that was starting to rub off on Jessica as well. So like any good friend, Mirna told Jessica to dump that bitch. Jessica did not appreciate Mirna's advice. In fact, Jessica immediately got up from the table and left, leaving Mirna with the bill, very confused and upset. Essentially, their friendship was over. Jessica didn't have any desire to speak with Mirna anymore. And when Mirna returned home, she started planning her wedding. It would be in Bali in 2015, and everyone she knew would be invited, except Jessica.
Oh.
Because of their fight and lack of communication afterwards, she decided it would be best to not invite her to the wedding. Which I understand.
Yeah, that's it sucks, but that makes sense. Especially if it's a recent thing, relatively. Yeah, that's tough.
I had a friend that did the same thing. She and I didn't get into a fight, but she just kind of stopped talking to me after 10 years of friendship, and I just didn't get invited to the wedding, and that's, I had to come to terms with it, but it's
really
fine.
Really unfortunate. Sometimes you just kind of grow apart.
Yep.
It's really...
Not long after the wedding, Mirna received a call from Jessica. Jessica had moved back to Indonesia and asked Mirna if they would like to grab coffee and patch things up. At first, Mirna was weary of the invitation, but after encouragement from her husband, she agreed to meet, but she would bring her friend Hani along as a buffer, just in case things got awkward. On January 6th, 2016, They decided to meet at Olivier Cafe inside the Grand Indonesia Mall. It was a very upscale cafe. People were only allowed in the cafe if they were well-groomed. Most customers walked in wearing luxury brands. The cafe itself was filled with really trendy decor, fancy tables with these fancy booths. Not only did they serve coffee, but they had a bar with cocktails as well. A few hours before they were supposed to meet, Jessica texted Mirna asking her what her coffee order was. Jessica knew she would be there a few minutes early, so she was going to find a table and pre-order drinks for everyone. Some sources say Mirna texted back saying not to worry about it, she would rather get her own drink, and other sources say she told Jessica, order me a Vietnamese iced coffee. At 5:15, Mirna and Hani arrived at the mall and walked inside to meet Jessica. Jessica had indeed arrived early and was already seated at a table. She waved at her friends and gestured to the coffee that she had already ordered for them. 2 cocktails for herself and Hani and an iced Vietnamese coffee for Mirna. Mirna was surprised that Jessica had ordered the coffee. Mirna had said she wanted to order her own, which is what I would like to believe. She hesitated for a moment, but decided it wasn't that big of a deal. She and Hani sat down at the table and began chatting. Turns out Jessica had actually heeded Mirna's advice. She had broken up with Patrick, her toxic boyfriend.
Ooh.
And as they're chatting, Mirna kind of eyed her coffee, grabbed it, and took a sip. A refreshing coffee was just what she needed. But suddenly, a metallic burning sensation hit her tongue. She looked at her friends like you do when you take a sip of your drink and you expect water, but you forgot you ordered soda. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
So she looked at her friends with that look on her face, and she said, "It tastes awful." And she waved her hands in front of her mouth like something was spicy. Little did she know that coffee would be her last. Minutes after Mirna drank it, yeah.
That's okay, talk about an overreaction. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. It was really shocking. I'm about to get into
That's crazy.
reactions. Minutes after Mirna drank it, her head rolled back as she collapsed into the booth and then onto the ground. She began to convulse, and foam started coming out of her mouth.
Yep. Oh my god.
Not good.
No.
The whole cafe started to panic. At face value, it looked like Mirna was having a seizure. Several of the cafe employees ran over, and one performed CPR, another called an ambulance. Jessica yelled at the manager, "What did you put in her coffee?" Hani called Arif, doing her best to explain what was happening, and told him to meet them at the hospital, which was only 5 minutes from the mall. But it was too late. Mirna was pronounced dead on arrival. She had died less than an hour after taking a drink of that iced coffee.
Jesus. That's I don't know. I it seems so simple, I think, but you've got to really I couldn't tell you. I mean, assuming, all right, I might be jumping ahead, but assuming that someone poisoned the coffee.
Mm-hmm. Spoiler alert, but yeah. I mean.
Yeah, right. Okay. That's I don't think I could tell you right now. Well, okay. If I think about it for more than about 30 seconds, then I could probably tell you where to get something that could do that to a person. But you really gotta hate somebody to do that kind of thing.
And you gotta think about it.
Yeah.
Very premeditated.
That's nuts.
Nuts.
Okay. All right.
Mirna's grieving family was confused and angry. She was a healthy, happy 27-year-old woman. How could she die so suddenly, and why? When her father arrived at the hospital, he spoke with Jessica. He asked if she had ordered the same coffee as Mirna, and she said no, which was true, but then she told him she had mineral water. Wrong, try again.
Ooh.
Jessica was acting extremely upset in the hospital. She walked around saying, "Did I do it? Did I kill Mirna? Did I kill her?" And I don't like to judge people's behavior in the face of grief and shock because everybody reacts differently, but it's kind of strange.
Even I was thinking as you were saying, when in the coffee shop, she goes to the manager, is "Dude, what did you put in her coffee?" If I had no reason to believe, if I was going in cold on okay, somebody looks like they're being poisoned, my first thought is not in a restaurant malicious intent because she's a stranger. It's not that hurts everybody in the building at that time, especially the people that work there. Like, why would that feels like you're putting a target on yourself, I guess is what I mean to say. Like, you being the first who smelt it dealt it kind of thing. Yeah. Like, if you're gonna point it out first, like, hey, come on, that's like, you made that conclusion before anybody else did. That feels incriminating more than anything. But oh my gosh,
you're on to something. After leaving the hospital, Mirna's family made their way to the funeral home. While they were there, the police showed up. After examining Mirna's body, they had concluded that Mirna hadn't just had a seizure, she had been poisoned. Poison. The police wanted to do an autopsy to gather more information and get some more answers, but Mirna's family resisted. It wasn't common to do autopsies in Indonesia. It's kind of a religious thing, but also just like family preference. Like, a lot of people didn't want autopsies done.
Interesting.
So Mirna's mother in particular did not want anybody putting their hands on Mirna. The police told them if there was no autopsy, they would never find out who poisoned her. So her family finally agreed. On January 10th, Mirna's funeral was held. That same day, the police updated the family on the findings of her autopsy. Mirna had cyanide in her stomach. Whoa. And that's what had killed her. This was murder. Yeah.
That's like, I mean, I don't know the first thing about chemicals, but that's like high grade. You gotta like...
It's hard to get.
You gotta want it. That's not like rat poison. Like that, you gotta like... Jeez Louise.
Police analyzed the crime scene, they interviewed witnesses, and physically reenacted the events of January 16th. Like, they brought Jessica and Hani back to the cafe and had them reenact what happened.
But to the actual cafe?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep. Over the next few weeks, one person stood out as a suspect. Guess who? It's Jessica.
It's the man. Oh, it's Jessica.
So Jessica is now their prime suspect.
Of course.
From here, we're going to rewind. We're going to hit pause and we're going to rewind.
Yep.
To the day of the murder. We're back to January 6th because there's more to the story. Remember how I said Jessica planned to arrive early at the cafe?
Mm-hmm.
Turns out she did get there early. Nearly 2 hours early.
Whoa.
How do we know this? There were security cameras. Boom, bam. There were 9 of them, as a matter of fact. Yeah. This is a huge factor in the case. It's later used as evidence to...
Yeah.
You'll see, but it was huge in the case.
Yeah.
The cameras show Jessica arriving at Olivier at 3:30 p.m. She pops into the cafe, texts her friends that she had arrived, looks around for a couple of minutes, and then leaves. About 45 minutes later, she returns to the cafe with 3 shopping bags. She orders at the counter, then she goes to find a table. Roughly 10 minutes later, the cocktails and the coffee were served to Jessica. At this point, Jessica arranges the bags to hide the drinks from the security cameras.
Whoa.
Still, the footage shows Jessica kind of shuffling things behind the bags. 40 minutes later, Mirna and Hani meet her at the cafe. First of all, why would you order drinks 40 minutes before your friends were going to get there?
I'm just thinking about, like, I walk martinis to tables every single day of my life, and those last about 5 minutes before they are disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, if you're, I don't know, that's, ice is gone.
Right.
Like, and a Vietnamese coffee, there's like a lot going on there. Like, it's like, I don't think I could tell you what's actually in it. I know it's good, but it feels like there's a lot of like syrup and stuff that's going to like split. That's nasty.
Yeah.
Like, if you can see it, it's not going to look right either. Yep. But,
Yep.
That's...
And like you said, the ice is all melted. It's watered down.
Yeah.
Like, the cocktail is going to like
your cocktail's
settle.
Going to separate.
Yeah.
It's going to look like oil and water. That's...
So anyway, when Mirna started convulsing, Jessica slowly and awkwardly backed away from her. Even the staff at the cafe stated that something about her behavior was off. So fast forward. Police call Jessica back into the station for more questioning. Then on January 30th, 24 days after Mirna's death, Jessica was arrested at the hotel. She had a suitcase with her. Then on January 30th, 24 days after Mirna's death, Jessica was arrested at a hotel. She had a suitcase with her, packed, ready to go. So she was presumably getting ready to run.
She's bugging out, yeah.
Yeah. But they got to her first. She was arrested and charged with premeditated murder. Her behavior here was also suspicious. Even on her way to prison, she was smiling at news cameras and like waving at them. And speaking of the news, the media caught onto this story really quickly. They were all over this case. And when I say all over, I mean all over. Like constantly. Cameras everywhere. Like as they're walking, they can barely get past all the cameras and reporters. Like huge. It was a circus, and the media had deemed her the coffee killer.
Pre-trial.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Although murders were common in Indonesia, this murder in particular was interesting to people because Mirna was young, she was successful, wealthy, recently married, and she'd been poisoned. And there was a lot of beef between her and the other wealthy girl that allegedly murdered her. It was very theatrical.
They were, remind me what their professions were?
Graphic designers.
Graphic designers, okay. Got it.
There was a lot of speculation on social media as well. It went viral. Some hated Jessica and some really supported her. There were conspiracy theories, accusations, confusion because cyanide was involved. Cyanide is mysterious. It's one of the 10 deadliest substances on Earth.
That's like in Bond movies, what they, like, that's the pill in your tooth that you use to, save yourself from torture. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever actually heard of that being used in like a real life scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's it seems like fiction that's like a thing that like is there somewhere I could get, not FBI man, I'm not asking for cyanide. I'm just like conjecturing would it be possible for like the layman to get like cyanide? That's insane.
It's very difficult
yeah.
to get your hands on.
It's like controlled, I would imagine. Like
highly probably black market type thing.
Yeah, you gotta want it.
And before this case, I knew that cyanide was a poison, right? But I didn't really know like what it did to the body. Mm-hmm. So it blocks the body from absorbing oxygen, which turns the skin red and rapidly leads to organ failure.
Whoa.
Yeah. But you can find it in almonds and apples. Like, it's such a small amount that it doesn't do anything, but there is trace amounts of cyanide in almonds and apples. One
of those things where they're like, the potassium in a banana could kill you if you had 800 billion of them. It's
exactly.
Like, okay, you simply can't eat that many.
Exactly.
Simply cannot. No. Sorry.
Simply cannot. On June 15th, Jessica's trial began at Central Jakarta District Court. There was a long line to get in the courthouse, and of course, every news outlet was in attendance. The trial was being televised 24 hours a day across 14 different stations, and all of them were already reporting that Jessica was guilty. But that needed to be proven beyond reasonable doubt in the courtroom. It's important here to talk about how the Indonesian justice system works. They don't have a jury. They have 3 judges.
Ooh.
These 3 judges decide what evidence is admissible in court, what the verdict is, and what the sentence is. So they have a lot of power.
They have, is that, they like all have to convene on each of those. It's not like each one of them has a different job, right? Okay, got it.
Right. The way the documentary explains the process is that and there's a documentary on this on Netflix. It's called Ice Cold.
I think I might have seen aimlessly flicking through, looking for something to burn the time. I feel like I might have seen that before. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good one. Okay. I do think it's a little biased.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into.
Okay.
But anyway.
It seems like there was a lot of that going around on this.
Yeah. So there is a documentary, and the way the documentary explains the process is that the score starts at 0-0 between the prosecution and the defense. The person charged with the crime sits in a chair in the middle of the courtroom. And that reminded me of Harry Potter in his like Ministry of Magic trial.
Oh my gosh.
Where he just has to sit in the middle. The prosecutor and the defense lawyer both use their cases to score metaphorical points with the judges. And this is called the battle model.
Huh.
There's a lot that goes on in this trial, and it's all very well documented, obviously, so I won't be able to include everything about it, but I'm going to include the important stuff. In the courtroom, they went through the entire timeline of January 6th. It was the prosecution's job to establish motive. You have to prove motive for a premeditated murder conviction. Turns out, there was a lot more beef between the two girls than everyone knew. Since following Mirna's advice about dumping her boyfriend, her life had spiraled. Jessica's life. Jessica was abusing alcohol. She wrecked her car while driving drunk, which put her in trouble with the law. She was fired from her job. So she had kind of lost everything after that breakup.
Yeah.
In Jessica's eyes, Mirna was to blame for everything that went wrong. Mirna was just out there living her best life and hadn't even invited Jessica to her wedding. Jessica's revenge was to kill Mirna. That was the prosecution's argument.
Gotcha.
In fact, Jessica was involved in 14 cases with the Australian police. She had attempted suicide, she had threatened to kill her boss, she had an active restraining order against her, and she had gotten in that wreck where she crashed into the side of a nursing home.
Oh my gosh.
While driving drunk. Yeah.
That preaches stability in a person.
The prosecution used this to argue that Jessica was mentally unstable, which I think is valid. Jessica herself later said that she definitely had issues while she lived in Australia. Her lawyer, Otto Hasibuan, came in really confident.
Snaps for that one.
Thank you. This guy was a big-time lawyer in Jakarta, basically a D-list celebrity. Maybe not even D-list, maybe more like F-list.
Is the vibe that you got while looking this up, is he like, okay, like real deal, like cut to the quick kind of lawyer, or is he like, what is the guy's name? He's on every bus in the city. It's like David Comey. Is that the lawyer who rocks?
Oh yeah, yeah. I feel like it's more Thomas J. Henry-ish.
Okay.
If you've seen his
billboards. I think so, yeah.
Like, just very prominent in the community, known for winning cases and defending people. Everybody knows his name.
So he's legit. Like, he's not like okay, got it. Right.
He's legit, for sure. He argued that there was no hard proof that Jessica put cyanide in Mirna's coffee. He said, where did the cyanide come from? From her pocket? From her pants? From her bag? Well, yeah.
Okay.
He also brought up inconsistencies in the testimonies that the prosecution presented. The doctor that handled Mirna's body testified that he had not performed an autopsy because the police requested him not to. But in the evidence files, there was a letter from the police straight up requesting an autopsy. So, Mirna's parents had actually only allowed a partial autopsy that allowed small samples to be taken from Mirna's stomach. Her brain had not been examined, therefore there was no way to know if Mirna died from other causes. A DNA expert testified that she could have died from disease, stroke, heart attack, any other natural cause, but there was no proof for any of these theories, including death by cyanide poisoning. Apparently, when Mirna's stomach was tested after only 70 minutes at the hospital, it was negative for cyanide. He explicitly stated that her cause of death was not poisoning at all. The prosecutors, of course, disagreed. They didn't need direct proof because there was overwhelming circumstantial evidence. No one else could have logically done it, and the tests done in the days after Mirna was embalmed did in fact show 0.2 milligrams of cyanide in her stomach. And for reference, an apple contains 0.6 milligrams of cyanide, and the minimum lethal dose is 50 milligrams.
Huh. So it was there, but it's like it could have been from anything, I guess. I guess there's more stuff that.
And there's a theory that it was just from the embalming fluids.
That's crazy.
I know.
Like, does it? Okay, I have questions for later, I guess. But yeah. Or go
ahead.
Is there like? Does it dissolve? Like, does it evaporate quickly or something? Like, what is it?
It's a liquid.
Okay. So like your body absorbs it, I guess, and then it okay, so it would have left her stomach, but then just got like spread around quickly, I guess. But it was like the second after
it kicks in quick.
I guess she was alive because it said like she was dead on arrival.
Yeah.
Right, but she was alive like for what, 70 minutes or something?
Less than an hour.
Less than an hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
At face value, these numbers seem to prove that Jessica is innocent. But when the toxicologist tested the actual glass of coffee, there was 7,400 milligrams of cyanide in it. And that's a big-ass difference. The defense attorneys agreed that this was suspicious, but, quote, someone else must have done it. Anyone out there who watches Drag Race, it's very Jada Essence Hall. Look over there! Let's think on this for a minute, though. Who else could have possibly put cyanide in the glass?
I told you it was the manager, Rin.
You would know the manager or the barista.
Okay, fair.
In fact, these two had a meeting with Mirna's father before the trial, and when the producers of the documentary asked them what they talked about during that meeting, the barista literally said, I forgot. And the manager said, I'm afraid I might say the wrong thing.
Excellent work, folks. Just top notch. Quality stuff.
After thinking for just a moment, the barista said they had talked about how to keep everyone's story straight, the importance of being consistent, and how to stick to the truth. So,
it's like, oh my gosh, that makes me angry.
Another strange point was a photo of Mirna after her death. This photo had been circulated showing Mirna's blue face. But cyanide doesn't turn the skin blue, it turns it red. And after this was pointed out, the same photo was circulated, but this time her skin was red. The defense pointed this out, and Mirna's father got really mad. Like, yelling in the courtroom, brandishing a gun, mad.
Brandishing a gun?
Mm-hmm. He was threatening one of the defense lawyers.
Yeah, but I'm surprised he got one in there, I guess. I don't know. In the courtroom. That's crazy. I mean, I get, like, it's your daughter. Like, you know, understandably. And if they're like, I guess he's probably sitting in there, like, thinking about the same that I think I am. Like, it should have been, like, open and shut. Mm-hmm. Like, by all accounts. But just ridiculous stuff gets in the way of that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And it's important to remember as well, both of these families, Jessica's family and Mirna's family, are on the wealthier side.
There's a lot to lose there, I guess. Or
yes. But also the power of money, right?
You saying like they like bribed like the
potentially.
Okay, or maybe it was
maybe. But his outburst wasn't the only outburst in court. Throughout the trial, the onlookers in the room would cheer when a good point was made for their side. They would laugh at things the lawyers were saying. They would get up and yell their objections and opinions. They would say, like, liar, and, you know, like, screaming at Jessica or screaming at the prosecutors. Like, it was wild.
It does seem like the point system, I mean, somewhat simply, it kind of makes it seem like a sporting event.
Yeah.
Like, there's a full-blown audience, and
Totally.
Wow.
Totally. As the trial went on, it became more and more difficult to control. It turned into, quote, a screaming match. No one could get a word in because they were all talking over each other. A psychologist, Dr. Indragiri, testified that Jessica was a narcissistic psychopath with an explosive and compulsive personality, which seems like it would be a point in the prosecution's favor. Except he said he knew this about her because, and I quote, her eyes don't sparkle like Julia Roberts.
That's not what I thought I was going to hear. That's not what I thought I was going to hear.
Yep.
Wow.
He explained that he...
Sorry, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm just like... That's just weirdly...
Very specific.
Like, I guess I kind of get where he's going. Like, okay, there's something in her eye that like in the book I'm reading, it's like it talks about how the dude H.H. Holmes, the guy like the big murder guy, is like super suave, super charming, pretty to look at, but there's something in his eyes that's just like empty.
Yeah,
like that's a crazy consistency. I wish that they had said about that man who looks like an actor with his handlebar mustache and bowler hat that he does not twinkle like Julia Roberts does. That's really awesome. Wow.
Yep. Her eyes don't sparkle like Julia Roberts. He explained that he used studies regarding the links between facial structure and personality traits, but still not great. Still not a great point. The trial lasted 135 days, almost 5 months. In the end, the judges found Jessica Wongso guilty.
Thank God.
Of first-degree murder, premeditated murder, and she would serve a sentence of 20 years in prison.
That feels low, right?
It feels low.
That feels very... Okay, all right. I wasn't sure, but...
Yeah.
That feels very low.
I was shocked when she only got 20 years.
I guess, do they have, like, is capital punishment a thing?
Yes.
Not advocating for or against, but, in Indonesia, that is a thing. Okay.
That is a thing, and there was actually an agreement between the Indonesian police and the Australian police, because in Australia, they don't have capital punishment. So when the Australian police were kind of called on to help out with investigating, they were like, yes, we'll help you investigate as long as you do not give her the death penalty.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that almost feels like I guess it's not, but it almost feels like seedy in a way. Like you can't like in that like a police force could compel the end of a trial. I don't know. That's interesting. Just like politics involving across borders. That's crazy.
Definitely political.
Yeah. That's wild.
People in the courtroom cheered or gasped in shock at this verdict, but Jessica's face showed zero emotion. Kind of the whole trial, she was just very stone-faced.
Despite having smiled and waved to news cameras on the way in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess after, what is that, a little over 4 months, you're probably beat, but man.
Still strange. She actually told the court they get to speak after the verdict if they want to. And she told the court that she thought the verdict was unfair and biased. Her lawyer announced that they would be filing an appeal as soon as possible. Even as she left the courtroom as a guilty woman, Jessica was smiling and waving at the cameras. She went to the Women's Correctional Institution Class 2A in Jakarta to serve her sentence, still maintaining her innocence. In the documentary, they met with Jessica at the prison to interview her. As soon as she starts getting into the specifics about what happened, the authorities interrupt the interview and say that the interview has gone too far. And they stop it.
What?
And then after that, they blocked all interviews with Jessica.
This is the Indonesian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Police force. Wow. Why?
That's real sketchy.
Why?
You can go to that prison and interview terrorists. You can interview murderers of children. You can interview anybody else, basically, but not Jessica.
But not the lady who poisoned the coffee and hid it behind her Nordstrom rack bag.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that weird?
That's super strange.
But Jessica kept a diary, which was handed over to the producers to give them some answers. In this diary, Jessica claimed that back at Café Olivier on January 6th, she had ordered drinks without knowing that her friends wouldn't be there for another 40 minutes. She claimed she was shuffling the shopping bags because she was, quote, simply bored. Dr. Indragiri...
For 40 minutes.
Right. Dr. Indragiri later claimed he had been bribed by, quote, certain parties to stop talking after giving his testimony in court about the sparkle of the eyes.
Of Jessica Roberts.
Julia
Roberts,
Roberts,
excuse me.
Jessica and Julia Roberts.
Yes.
Yes. Also, Mirna's father, Eddie, seemed very self-centered in the interviews on the documentary. Not that I blame him for fighting for his daughter, but in the end, he seems to make it about him winning rather than getting justice for Mirna. Like, literally in the documentary, he was like, I win. I was like, that's a little strange.
That is a little sketch.
And you might have bribed people.
I mean, okay, wait. So the doctor getting allegedly bribed, he was accusing Jessica, but then told to cut short. So is that I guess I'm wondering, does that imply that it was the defense trying to bribe him, or was it her dad trying? Like, what would his next few sentences have done? Like, would it have incriminated Jessica, or would it have exonerated her?
It would have it would have been a point in the defense's favor because his testimony wasn't really backed up by any facts.
Gotcha. Because they didn't really do an autopsy. They kind of did.
Right.
Yeah.
They took samples.
And he was just saying oh, she looks like dead inside or something.
Right. Right. So allegedly,
so that was dead. Oh.
He was bribed to stop talking.
Wow.
Allegedly. Jessica had exhausted all of her appeals to no avail. She spent 8 years in prison, and then, on August 18th of 2024, she was released on parole. She was released because of good behavior. She was teaching English and yoga to fellow prisoners. She is required to stay in Jakarta until the end of her sentence in 2032. She says she has, quote, forgiven everyone who wronged her. And she and her lawyer say that they have new evidence that they're going to use to appeal her sentence and get her exonerated. And that is the case of the murder of Mirna Salihin.
The coffee killer.
The coffee killer. I went into this case fully believing that Jessica was so guilty.
Yeah.
But after researching it, I'm like, ooh.
Well, because about halfway through, I'm like, okay. Especially, I'm so mad at that barista and the manager. Like, it just seems like they're being stupid.
Yeah.
Right. But then at the end, oh god, it does seem real shady. But then why would they intentionally I don't know. It seems like, Dad, if they weren't guilty, if Mirna or if Jessica were innocent, why was there any effort to incriminate her? I don't know. It seemed open and shut. If you just hadn't done anything, it would have naturally gone the way of Mirna's family.
Yeah.
You know? Why did they decide to throw so much at it? And also it was so important in the media, but they're graphic designers. Forgive me if but that's not the, it's a nice job, and depending on the circumstances, you can make a lot of money from it. But you're not I couldn't tell you who the famous graphic designers in America are, or I don't know if that's an esteemed position in Indonesia or something
I'm not sure. I don't think so. But I think it was more that both of the families were generally wealthy.
Note. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And I see both sides, right? Jessica looks guilty as fuck, but also the police, I think, needed to pin this on someone, whether they were guilty or not. And then Mirna's father was allegedly kind of pressuring the police of, like, you need to arrest Jessica.
Yeah.
Like, it was Jessica.
Why were the police so hell-bent on getting somebody? I mean, because if they don't, they just kind of look like...
It was big in the media.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
If it ended up being unsolved...
They are under threat of being called incompetent and...
Exactly.
Losing trust. Interesting.
Exactly. But yeah, there were just a lot of odd things in the trial and the media that just don't make sense. The guy who stopped the interview and then all the interviews were forbidden, the amount of cyanide in Mirna's stomach, the witness that used bullshit to back up their claims, Mirna's aggressive father, and something else that I thought was sort of morbidly funny. There's a different coffee shop in Jakarta that put a new drink on their menu called a non-toxic Vietnamese coffee. And to advertise it, they used the slogan, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger."
Oh my God.
Which is so insensitive, but also, like, kind of...
I mean, it's... Look, we're talking about it.
We're talking about
it. That's crazy. Yeah. That is, like, I don't know. Yeah, that's it. When you started, I was like, oh, this is like, okay, I know what's about to happen.
Yep.
Like, I do that a lot. Like, I jump to the natural conclusion. It was like, it gets real weird. The amount of cyanide, I mean, like, I don't know anything about poison, but that seems like too much. Like, if you were going to be subtle about it, if you were trying to hide the fact, like, that seems like a lot.
Yeah.
What was it, 7,400?
7,400 milligrams.
I guess if you don't know that much about it, like, it stands to reason that you could overdo it a little bit by accident, but also that's assuming that she actually did it and that it wasn't, like, I don't know. Like, why would you... Who else, I guess? Like, there's... Of course, that's the question. That's why this exists, but, like, that's so weird. Yeah. Why would your dad be so... I don't know. That's insane.
There's a lot of mystery
There's
still.
a lot of mystery.
And we can't get answers from Jessica.
So, she's out of prison.
Yes.
She's in Jakarta.
Yes.
Just hanging out on parole. They still can't interview her?
I guess that's true. They can, and she's done, like, some press conferences, but I don't think, because it was really recent, right? I don't think she's done any interviews. I couldn't find any. Most of the articles that I found said she was still in jail, so they just aren't recent enough.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I mean, if somebody went as far out of their way to forbid interviews in the prison, they're probably doing the same, like, telling her, like, don't talk to anybody, like,
potentially.
Yeah. And even if that just, her lawyer is probably like, just to make sure it doesn't interfere with her getting, like, her sentence reduced.
And another thought that I had was, now that she's kind of back out in the world, is she in danger?
With that much attention, maybe, yeah. Because she was, she was in prison for 8 years. I guess media moves fast. Like, it could be that it's kind of died down by now, but, like, if Mirna's family is still, like, which they're probably richly upset.
Yeah.
Still. I want to know what the rest of her family does, like, what their wealth is in, you know?
Yeah. I know her father is in the plastics industry.
Oh, you mentioned that. Big. That's right. Which is huge. Yes. That's at the highest level, that's insane. Yeah. I met one guy. I was interviewing for jobs after school, like, kind of in the middle of COVID, looking for, like, office jobs and stuff. And through a friend of a friend, met this guy. His name was Wayne, and he's a plastics guy here in Texas. And, like, he took me to lunch and was like, "Oh yeah, we'll just do, like, a quick casual little interview at, like, one of the nicest restaurants I've ever been to in Dallas."
Oh,
like, just super, and, like, because I show up and he didn't really give me much detail, so I show up in, like, basically what I'm wearing now, which is, like, sweatpants, sneakers, and like an open button down with a baseball cap on, and he's in, like, a full suit.
Yikes.
But, like, didn't like bat an eye about it. Like, he really just made it sound like he wanted. Point being, dude is rolling in it, like, big time.
Yeah.
And despite not having like any celebrity about him, like it's not like a flashy industry, but like gosh.
Yep. And my thought is like if Jessica starts giving interviews, I could potentially see someone trying to take her out.
Yeah. I guess it's just like they want, like, Pops, you know, Mirna's dad, doesn't want like any bad press. Maybe just any press, period. Maybe he's got some shady stuff going on unrelated?
Maybe.
Perhaps. I really hate the I win statement. I want to go watch that documentary now, see his whole vibe. Yeah. That's really weird.
It's weird. I will say the documentary focuses a lot on sort of the conspiracy theory and like the alternate theory that Jessica's innocent.
Is that the bias you mentioned? Like it kind of leans in her favor?
Yes.
Gotcha. Because it's interesting.
Right.
To think about that. Yeah.
Right. But anyway.
Yeah.
that's the case of Mirna Salihin. I really appreciate you being here. I hope you had fun.
I did.
Good.
I did. I was I was not expecting to get as like bewildered by that by the end as I did, but that's really cool. Thanks.
Nice. Job well done.
Yeah. I'm also now scared of my coffee cup on the table.
Yeah, be careful with your coffee.
She's out there.
She's out there. Oh gosh. Okay, friends, that's all for today's episode. Next week, I'll be celebrating St. Patrick's Day by giving you an Irish case. Until then, make good choices, go touch some grass, and remember, friends don't let friends commit crimes. Bye!
Bye!
Done!